In fact, though there is a lot of buzz about new stuff, the reality is most of it was here previously, a long time ago, in fact. Email, databases, spreadsheets, online audio, online video, photo sharing, and so on and so on. Even mapping. For decades, a lot of these things existed, or longer. And so why I say it's a state of mind is that what we're finding now is that there is an easier capability to mix and match and weave together. Some people use the term mash up these tools for more powerful uses. Is that new? Not really. The cost has come down on a lot of these tools. The barriers to the use of the tools has come down for a variety of reasons, maybe because they're more user-friendly. But the dynamics, the basic calculus on what does or doesn't make for success in Web 2.0 existed a long time ago. And what I find myself somewhat frustrated by in the dialogue around this stuff is that we possibly, and I believe probably, are making a lot of the same mistakes in both the way we're approaching even the discussion and then the way we're deploying the action. So here we are in this session and in many other sessions that I sit in on or a part of. And what I hear is about all the new stuff. Here's what you can do. Here are the great things that people are doing. And I don't mean to rain on that parade entirely, but somewhat. And why I'm raining on that parade is I heard the same excitement come up 15 years ago when the World Wide Web became kind of the new thing. I heard this come up when we started to talk more about the integration of software, how different pieces of software can talk to each other. I mean, goodness gracious, I can remember back in 1986, so we're talking 20 plus years ago, when the federal government released, under the new Superfund law at that time, had to release information on air, water, and ground-based toxic pollution by community, by factory. I remember at that time, with a colleague of mine, Michael Stein, taking that data and parsing it out by county zip code, and then blasting out via email notices about that. What were we doing at that time? Well, we were mashing things together. We were using data that's powerful. And so I just want to really emphasize the critical nature of us not making the same mistakes, that a lot of this hasn't changed. And the things that we need to attend to are very much the same things that we had to attend to back there years ago. I think a good lesson learned here is in relation to the current political campaign on the Democratic side of the aisle. We have Hillary Clinton, who is using a very kind of top-down, static, non-dynamic online presence to both raise money and to activate her field base. We then have Barack Obama, who brings to that online space a rooted framework around community organizing. And so there's an enormous amount of online, offline connection with the work that's being done. Totally different approaches with different results, mind you. And so I think my big pitch to you is don't forget to look back at what lessons have been learned already about organizing and engagement of stakeholders as you look at the use of some of these new lower barrier uses of the tools. I really could sit here and easily talk to you about all the great things that are happening out there. I don't mean to rain on the parade of those who have good examples to share. I think a lot of those examples actually highlight some of what I'm talking about and the successes out there. If we were to go underneath what made the success happen, we would find that those organizations, those efforts have been attentive to culture. of the organization or the audience, the stakeholders, the knowledge of who those stakeholders are, and the willingness to really listen to those stakeholders, I think is what we would find. I would think we would find excellent leadership. I think we would find an ability to take risks, but in a balanced way. I think we would find certain characteristics of organizing, of engagement, that are underneath those successes as opposed to the tools that are being used. Um, and in the future, I'll be convening case study conference calls, and I'll be inviting all of you to be part of those if you're interested, where we're going to look at very specific things, like a simple mapping project that an organization is working on, and what are the results, and why are they good and why aren't they good, and we're going to delve underneath this to dig under a little bit more and not just look at the tool or the fancy view that's online, but really what makes it work and what doesn't. Core question. I like to be asset-based about this stuff as opposed to deficit-based, but I can't help but ask the question, why is it that foundations and the nonprofit sector more broadly, why is it that foundations are struggling so much with this stuff? Well, I think one of the things is that there's almost like an either-or mentality that seems to exist. Either it's jump in full force, let's go for it and do this, that, and the other thing, or there's a real strong stop, aversion. This is not for us. Our stakeholders aren't online. This is not the way we like to work as a community foundation with those in our community. I guess what I would put in front of you is probably a balanced approach that we need to be looking at when we look at these tools, when we look at these audiences. Are there ways for us in the foundation sector, in philanthropy, to be using these tools, taking some chances, but doing it within the context of respect for our culture as an organization, respect for the audience, who they are, respect and awareness of our capacity to handle these efforts? So I think that there are core questions to be asked, but I don't think the questions should be framed in such a way or push us towards one extreme or towards the other extreme of quick adoption and non-strategic thinking, or aversion and a lack of looking at the possibilities. And I think that that's one of the key barriers to breakthrough, is to look at a more balanced approach of how to work with this stuff. Okay? I think that there is a prevailing view that foundations and the nonprofit sector in general are behind, right? We're not keeping up with the for-profit sector on this stuff, with the commercial sector. I'm not so sure that that's a relevant question or a relevant thing to be really pointing to. There are many in the for-profit sector who are failing with their use of these tools. I would venture to guess, actually, that the failure rate is extremely high. And so the accelerated pace with which the commercial sector both adopts, buzzes about, publicizes, and holds up incredible new stuff, I don't know necessarily if it bears itself out in reality as being adopted effectively by most of the commercial sector. So that's something I want to kind of put out on the table as to maybe why foundations haven't succeeded, which is this kind of aversion to risk that's intensive, or jumping in way too fast. Is it just the concept of a more balanced approach, and really thinking through more carefully how to respond to stakeholder needs and let that drive the discussion. And then, of course, bringing in the other types of things needed to make effective decisions about how to proceed. The expertise, the knowledge about what's going on out there, so you can see examples.